Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. Today we're going to be doing a deck tech on BRIAR and looking at the deck I've been playing a lot recently and having a ton of fun with post-Dynasty. BRIAR is one of the most powerful heroes in the game right now. Just took second place at the World Championship, so obviously a very powerful hero. And the closest hero to hitting Living Legend, right? I think she's well over 900 points, and you need to hit 1,000 points to Living Legend. So it's very likely that after this next ProQuest season in January, it's almost guaranteed that she will be Living Legend status, right? So if you are pretty new to the game and you're trying to buy into it, probably not the hero you want to buy into, just because she'll only be around for a month or so. But if you've been in the game for a while and you have all these cards already, or if you just don't mind the budget, this is a really great deck, and it's quite fun, honestly. I kind of dubbed it Pay to Win BRIAR. This is a name one of my locals, Tony, offered up, and it is a perfect name. It's basically trying to capitalize on the new legendary headpiece here, Crown of Dominion, which says your hero is royal, and when you equip Crown of Dominion, create a gold token, right? And gold tokens are just little tokens that say you can pay 2 resources to destroy it, draw a card, and go again, right? And you get one of them when you start the game. The combination here, though, is with this card Cash In. This is a card from Crucible. It is a yellow, cost 4, and it's a non-attack action that blocks for 2. And it says you may destroy 4 copper, 2 silver, or 1 gold rather than pay its resource costs. So instead of paying the 4 resources, you draw 2 cards and then you go again. So we're trying to play with Flesh and Blood's version of Pot of Greed here, right? Trying to draw 2 cards and just see as much of our deck as we can. So really the idea is that almost every one of our non-attack actions draws cards, and even quite a few of our attack actions draw cards. And drawing cards is very powerful in every Flesh and Blood deck, but BRIAR, I think, kind of capitalizes on it even more so because of the card channel Not Heroic. We almost always win games where we see multiple copies of these and we can make good use of them. And we're going to lose a lot of our games where we never see any channel Not Heroic, right? So the deck kind of revolves around this card and how much damage it gives you. Once you play 3 attacks while this has been out, it's already above rate because it's 2 cards, the card you're pitching and channel Not Heroic itself, and +9 if you're using it on 3 attacks. So that's each card getting 4.5 points of value, which is already pretty above rate. And then every card after that is pretty absurd, right? If you get a 4th attack, it's 6 points of value. If you get another attack after, it's 7.5 points of value, which is 15 damage across 5 cards. It can get pretty absurd dealing effectively 15 with 5 cards, or with 1 card, I mean. So the powerhouse of the deck, and we really want to see it as much and as quickly as we can, right? And so drawing cards is really good in BRIAR. Some decks like Viscerai just want to play Mauve, Shrill, Rosetta, and they can play enough copies to see it every turn. But BRIAR really needs to find one of these 3 copies of channel Not Heroic, and there's no way to search for it. So we're just trying to draw into it as quickly as we can, right? So, and the main ways to do that are going to be through a lot of our non-attack actions that are just going to draw us cards. So just going to kind of go through the deck here. We can see this is the default loadout. I have some different matchups here. I guess it doesn't work actually on the recording if I click on it, but if you click on default matchup, it'll show a few different matchups. Fabtcg is really good at doing that, and it looks pretty too. So you can see we've got the default loadout here. We've got Tunic, we've got the Crown to give us that gold. We've got Grasp of the Arknight, Rosetta Thorn, and Snapdragons. These are all classics that let us filter extra blues into Rune Chance and block, get extra go again when we don't have it, and deal a ton of damage here. The Fyendal Spring Tunic is actually pretty important in this deck because we have 3 cash-ins, and they're actually not bad to cast for the full 4 resources. Drawing 2 cards is worth about 3 resources, so we'd rather it be cost 1 less. We'd rather just pitch a blue for it, and Tunic kind of lets us do that, right? If we're able to get 1 resource from Tunic and then pitch a blue, we can play the cash-in and then basically filter 2 cards for 2 cards, right? The cash-in and the blue for 2 new cards, But because of Briar's hero ability that says after you've played 2 non-attacks on a turn, you get an embodiment of lightning, that's kind of half of a go again as well. And it turns on Rosetta, and it gets us closer to Channel Mount Heroic. So drawing cards, really good. We already play Gorganian Tome here. This is just a 0 cost to draw 1 card. The only exception is if your opponent also has a Gorg Tome in their graveyard, you'll draw 2. And vice versa, but usually, almost always, this is 0 resources to draw 1 card, right? So 1 card for 1 card, and then cash in is 2 cards for 2 cards. So the first cash in will be free, so you'll use that gold token to draw 2 cards, and that's very good. That's just better Gorganian Tome, right? It's 0 resources for 2 cards, and that gives you a very explosive turn because you are going up a card. If you have an arsenal, you're going up to 6 cards, right? You have 5 in your hand now and your arsenal, 6 total cards for a ton of damage. And the ones after that, you can just filter with Tunic. And it's not even the end of the world if you have to pitch 2 blues to play 1. You can use that floating resources for Rosetta Thorn there. Let's look at all the other ways we have to draw cards. So we've got 3 cash in here. We also have 3 Coax of Commotion. This says when it hits, you can choose any number of these. Both heroes can make a quicken, both heroes can draw a card, or both heroes can gain a life. Pretty often, you won't do the gain a life because you're trying to kill your opponent. But there are situations where you'll want any of these. You often want Quicken because you can use Quicken tokens very well. And you're often going to want to draw a card, especially on Channel Mount Heroic turns, right? Because all of your cards have +3 damage, and their cards don't have that. So this is especially good when you already have Channel Mount Heroic out, but if you haven't seen one yet, it can also help you dig to it. So drawing cards, usually pretty good with our deck. We also have Enlightened Strike. This allows us to draw a card. The other good mode is choosing Go Again if we don't have any other way to get in Go Again this turn. E-Strike is kind of a way to let us do a kind of medium power Go Again attack, right? But draw a card is going to be nice as well. Force of Nature is one of our very strong draw card tools. It says whenever an attack action card you control hits this turn, if its power is greater than its base, draw a card. So this obviously combines with Channel Mount Heroic to make every one of our attacks draw if they hit that turn, but it can be totally fine on turns in which you don't have Channel Mount Heroic. By buffing your attacks, if you fuse it, your next attack gets +1. So that attack is already threatening to draw a card, and this can let you draw quite a few cards as well. We have the legendary Gorganian Tome here. This is just 1 card in the deck, but you basically just play it and it lets you filter, which is pretty nice. Snatch, another way to draw cards. This is the classic. It's just a 0 for 4 power, and if it hits, you draw a card. Sonata Arcanix, while it can't draw Channel Mount Heroic because it only can add attack actions to your hand, it does let you filter through your deck faster, and it lets you shuffle your deck too, so that can be a way if your channels happen to be at the bottom, you can kind of shuffle into them with this Sonata Arcanix. We also play 18 blues, which is a little high for an aggro deck, and you kind of have to just because you need those like 12 earth blues to play your Channel Mount Heroic, but this lets us make use of them pretty well. If you have extra blues, you can pitch them into the Sonata Arcanix and get some extra damage and attacks out of it. We've got Sotomaro. If this is played from your arsenal, you draw a card. It also lets us put either Channel Mount Heroics or Tome of Harvest or Earthlore Surges back on the bottom of our deck. We've got This Round's on Me. This card's great because it's not only is it a blue, but if you have an embodiment of Earth, it blocks for 4, which is basically just a sink below from your hand in a normal blocking, right? But this one also lets you draw a card, which can be nice as well. And like I said, if you have a card like Channel Mount Heroic out, it lets you get a bit more value out of your card you draw than your opponent. In addition, we kind of use our cards better than our opponent a lot of the time anyways, so we're happy to let them draw cards if we also get to draw a card. And it has the added effect of attacks that target you have -1 power. I never read it like that, actually. I thought it was just target heroes attacks at -1 power, but I guess for Ultimate Pit Fight's sake, it's all attacks that target you have -1 power, which is pretty good against decks that go really wide. So against Fies, this card is quite powerful, and you'll want to play it usually if you can. But blocking for 4 is what I do with it a lot anyways, and that's really powerful. If you can get 4 points of value out of basically any card, that's usually quite good. So blocking for 4 is always pretty good with the card. And then kind of our biggest card draw card is Tome of Harvest here. This draws 3 cards, but it costs 3 resources, and you have to put a card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck. So you're once again trading 3 cards here. The card itself, your arsenal, and your pitch card for 3 cards. So you're not plus any cards or minus any cards. It's still card neutral, but card neutral is pretty good in BRIAR. It gets us 2 our Channel Heroics faster, and it makes Embodiment of Lightnings. So you love being card neutral if you're just drawing a bunch of cards in BRIAR. So that is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 19, 22, 25, 28 ways to draw cards in the main deck. So 28 ways is about, half of the main deck draws you cards in some form or another. Obviously, Sonata doesn't exactly draw you cards, and quite a lot of these have to hit to draw cards, but we're still really getting through our deck as fast as possible. And that's really important for BRIAR because you really want to get to these Channel Mount Heroics, right? That's huge. I just played a game for the Flesh and Blood Team League, which if you haven't seen, I would check it out. I appreciate Team Foundry hosting it. It's a great way to have some competitive Flesh and Blood teams play each other. And this week, I was on this deck, and I played against a Bravo. Pretty close game. I mean, we were both at like 3 or 4 life at the end. He hit me with a Terra Sunder, and on his Anathos, I went from 10 to 3. And I got to discard 2 cards and obviously keep 2 cards. And I kept a Tome of Harvest here and some blue. I don't remember what the blue was. I was able to, just keep those 2 cards, play the Tome of Harvest. I drew into a cash-in, and I still had my gold out. Played that, drew into another cash-in, was able to play that. So that turn I drew, if you count my 4-card hand, I drew 11 total cards by playing Tome of Harvest and 2 cash-ins, and was able to turn my 2-card hand after taking a Terra Sunder into a win. Kind of shows the power of drawing through all these cards. Kind of lets you filter and find exactly what you need in this deck. So very powerful. And the rest of it is kind of the traditional BRIAR based pretty directly on the deck that took 2nd place at Worlds. We're playing Blue Autumn's Touch. This is just a 3-block. That is also a blue Earth card for Channel Mount Heroic, and usually you won't attack with it. You'd like not to, but sometimes you have to. Bramble Spark is a pretty powerful non-attack if you're able to fuse it. 0 cost for +3 if it's fused on your next attack, and 1 arcane, so 4 total. Cash-ins we spoke on. Channel Mount Heroic we kind of spoke on is one of the strongest cards, if not the most powerful card in BRIAR. Coax the Commotion, very good, 0 for 4. Earthlore Surge, we're playing the blues because they are pretty okay. Blue Earth cards for Channel Mount Heroic, and if you need to play them, it's not the end of the world. The red is also really good against most decks, but especially Oldhim, because it makes it so they can't ice react to you. If you play all your stuff out first, you'll have that 1 floating to Rosetta, and you're able to give pretty huge attacks with +5. It's also just a pretty solid non-attack in general, and if you really need to, you can pitch it to keep around Channel Mount Heroic, so pretty solid red here. We play 2 of them, though, because they're pretty clunky. We don't usually want to pitch that much, and so we don't want one every hand. E-Strike is the most flexible attack in the game and kind of saves our deck on awkward turns. Exude Confidence, another great 0 for 4. Another way to use up our resources from our blues. We have a lot of ways to kind of turn blues into better stuff, right? So we've got Enlightened Strike to put them on the bottom, Cash In to pitch them away and draw cards, Exude Confidence to pitch them and get +2. Flex does the same thing but costs 1 less resource, so you can pitch a blue here to get +2 as well. All great ways to use our blues if we have too many in our hand. And otherwise, they're all still fine cards, right? 0 for 4, 0 for 4, very good rates still all around. Talked about Force of Nature and Gorganian Tome. Lightning Surge here is another 0 for 4, but if we play it from our arsenal, it has Go Again, which our deck struggles a little to get Go Again. The main way we're going to get it is through our hero ability, getting in an embodiment of lightning. So Lightning Surge is a welcome addition to be able to game Go Again. Ravenous Rabble is hopefully a 0 for 4 go again. You reveal the top card and it gets minus X power, where X is the pitch value of the card. So if it's a red on top, it gets a 0 for 4. If it's a blue on top, it's unfortunately a 0 for 2. So you're really hoping not to hit any of those 18 blues. And in the lucky 1 out of 60 chance you hit the Gorganian Tome, which doesn't pitch at all, it's a 0 for 5. So that's the little lottery win. I actually haven't gotten that off yet, but I will be happy the day it does happen, get my 0 for 5 attack action. Scar for Scar is another solid 0 for 4 that sometimes is able to gain Go Again, which once again is a premium in our deck. We've got Snatch. We talked about this, another great 0 for 4. Sonata, great way to filter and draw cards. So Tomorrow, usually in Earth Blue, but sometimes can be good in the kind of fatigue style game, getting us extra cards back into our deck and then drawing cards. Storm Gloomveil, another great 0 for 3 Go Again or 0 for 4 Go Again. Once again, a great card because it's always good to play usually. Basically we'll take any solid Go Again we can get, and it even blocks for 3, which is rare for our attacks, so that's pretty nice as well. And we spoke on this round's on Neon Tome and Tome of Harvest. So that's kind of the main deck here. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave them in the comments below. Now we are going to hop on over to the sideboard section here, which honestly we don't touch too much. The main deck is pretty solid, and messing with it too drastically is really going to throw off the ratios. I think we have a pretty close to 30. Yeah, I try to make it, it's 30 attacks and 30 non-attacks, which is important for stuff like Sonata. So and just being able to draw 2 and 2 every turn. So we don't really want to mess with our ratios too much, and we'd ideally like to trade attacks for attacks and non-attacks for non-attacks. The equipment we have in the sideboard here is Aether Ironweave. This is a chess piece that allows us to block for 1, but get the resources from it after we've blocked with it, which is kind of a step up over Tunic when we're playing against aggro decks where we might need to block early on, or there's only a few turns of the game, and this might even get us some more resources than Tunic, right? Tunic gets you 1 resource every 3 turns, so to get 2 resources, you'll need 6 total turns. This gets you 2 resources right away, and that can be better against games where we don't think we're going to get 6 turns, right? And against a lot of aggro decks, we are not going to get 6 turns. We'll get maybe 3 or 4, 5 even, but 6 is on the higher end, and even if we get there, that makes it only equal with Ironweave. It would need to get to 9 turns to be better. So against aggro decks, Ironweave is just more consistent and lets us block something like a Snatch early on with a card from hand in Ironweave, and then get those 3 resources after. So pretty good equipment against aggro decks. We prefer Tunic most of the time, since we usually will go a bit longer and we'll often get to that 9 turn, where the 9th turn Tunic gets a bit better, but Ironweave, nice against those aggro decks. We've got 2 Amulet of Earth. This is mostly just because it's a blue. You want this just against the ice decks. You're just going to need a few extra blues to be able to push through all of the ice. So I put these 2 Amulet of Earths in here. Being an Earth card is nice as well for Channemont Heroic. Lets us keep it around, and that might happen a lot more against ice decks. You'll put Channemont Heroic out, they'll put some taxes on you, but you'll be able to keep it by pitching 2 blue Earth cards on your next turn. So having the blue be an Earth card is nice. It also is probably the next Earth card we would have put in the deck anyways. It can be nice on turns with Force of Nature, for example, to be able to make it so you have kind of a mini Channemont Heroic turn. So pretty powerful card still, and we're happy to put it in the sideboard, but it doesn't block, and it sometimes won't do anything at all the whole game. So definitely not as good as our other Earth blues in the deck, and I just have it in the sideboard against those ice decks where you're going to need a little extra power, which this can provide, giving you a +4 turn when you have Channemont Heroic out, and you'll need some extra resources. Command and Conquer is for disrupting, usually other aggro decks or decks that really need their arsenal. So this is good against Rangers, obviously. It's good against Ninjas who don't have Crown of Providence. It's even not bad against other Rune Blades a lot of the time. I think I even played it against Bravo because Bravo really likes to use their arsenal to put in their powerful red attacks like Crippling Crush and Spinal Crush, and this will make it so that they need to block with cards from hand, and they can't just, sit there. And if you get this at the end of a chain, it can even, guaranteed take their arsenal, which can be pretty huge. But yeah, pretty powerful card. You kind of have to read what scenarios it's good in, how much hero you're facing values their arsenal, but it's good in quite a lot of matchups. Our next equipment here, Crown of Providence. This is, so far I'm just kind of using it against aggro decks, and I don't even know if I've used it every time so far. I really enjoy using the cash-in package, so I've usually been not playing in this. I think it's mostly against maybe like a Phi or another BRIAR, or maybe the only times I would play this. It's basically the matchups where I'm also playing this Sigil of Suffering, because I'm going to take the 3 cash-ins out and put in these 3 Sigil of Sufferings, kind of trade a little bit of that offensive power for some defensive power when we need it against other aggro decks. And when we don't have cash in, the Crown of Dominion we're playing gets a lot worse, and we'd rather have the 2 block here from the Crown of Providence. I'm not quite sure what this Pulse of Candlehold is for. Once again, the deck's not all the way fleshed out, and the main thing that's not fleshed out is the sideboard. You can change so many cards in this sideboard to make them better for your local meta or for the meta you're expecting to face. Right here we have Pulse of Candlehold. I think it can be a 4 block. It's an Earth card that you can sometimes pitch, and I think the main thing is it can get back Channel Mount Heroics onto the top of your deck, which lets you go a bit longer against fatigue decks. But I think some of these cards are a little interchangeable. The main thing is, obviously, I think you'd always want to keep these Command and Conquers. But the rest of it I could see changed in some way or another. We're playing Runic Reclamations. These are mostly for the mirror. It lets you threaten them on turns where they play Channel Mount Heroic. You can arsenal this until they play that Channel Mount Heroic, and then use it to attack, where they basically have to block with their whole hand, or they lose their Channel Mount Heroic, which basically kills their turn either way, right? If they lose the Channel Mount Heroic, their hand's a lot weaker, and if they block with their hands, they're not doing anything anyways, and they still can't keep the Channel Mount Heroic. So sometimes their best option is just to take it, in which case you're getting a ton of value. So really good in the mirror. Otherwise, it is a popper for Dromai, and we actually have technically 9 poppers with Flex, which is pretty good for that matchup. But yeah, pretty good card overall. And I think as long as BRIAR's in the meta, or there's decks that have powerful auras that cost at least 3 resources, probably wouldn't play this against decks that play auras less than 3 resources. It's not getting as much value there, but 3 resource and up auras like Channel Mount Heroic or Prism's auras make this worth playing and threatens a lot from it. So once BRIAR Living Legends, if there's no other good aura decks, maybe it'll come out, but for now it's quite good. Once again, Sigil of Suffering, basically just for the other aggro decks, BRIAR and Phi. They're probably not going to bring any Arcane Barrier, and if they do, they probably won't want to pitch for it anyways. So this will often, block for 4 and deal 1 damage, which is a 5-point swing from 1 card, which is pretty above rate, especially when it's blocking an on-hit like a Red Snatch. It's just phenomenal. So often this is going to pull a lot of weight in those matchups. Also, it's still a 0 for 4, even if they don't prevent even if they do prevent the Arcane, because obviously they have to pay for it. So it's a 0 for 4 no matter what, and sometimes it's a 0 for 5, which is very powerful against other aggro decks. And then our last card here is Vexing Cool Hand. You do need Arcane Barrier 1 with all these Icelanders running around. It's good for those Aether Ice Veins, and makes their endgame combo deal 3 less damage. So definitely need to have that at least AB1. BRIARs usually will run Crown of Dichotomy, which I do think is a better option. Crown of Dichotomy is quite strong, and you don't want to lose your Grasp. You'd rather keep Grasp of the Arknight, but because we're really trying to utilize this gold token from Crown of Dominion, we're going to just go with Vexing Cool Hand for now, and try to see how that works out, because I really don't want to not have to run Crown of Dominion here. But that is the deck. Went a little long. I really enjoyed this deck, and this is one I've actually played quite a lot of, so kind of had a lot to say about it, right? But if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe. I appreciate you watching. Let me know who you want me to do a deck tech on next time. I might not have as much experience as I do on BRIAR, but still love to talk about Flesh and Blood and any kind of decks we've got going on. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.